The basic qualities of five elements are: wood can be bent and straightened, fire flares upwards, earth permits sowing, growing, and reaping, metal can be molded and can harden, water can moisten downwards. The five elements also symbolize five different directions of movement of natural phenomena. Wood represents expansive outward movement in all directions. Metal represents contractive inward movement. Water represents downward movement. Fire represents upward movement, and earth represents neutrality or stability. The very term "sing", translated as element, means movement. Thus, the five elements always represented five types of movements rather than fundamental substances. The five movements find important applications in medicine. For example, pathological fire clearly blazes upwards, causing a red face and feeling of heat. Wood or liver chi flows freely in every direction. Metal controls the skin which contains the body contraction. Water or kidney chi has clearly a downward movement, excretion of impure fluids, and earth is in the center and therefore the pivot of reference. Each of the five elements represents a season in the yearly cycle. Wood corresponds to spring and is associated with birth. Fire corresponds to summer and is associated with growth. Metal corresponds to autumn and is associated with harvest. Water corresponds to winter and is associated with storage. Earth corresponds to the late season and is associated with transformation. The position of Earth requires some explanation. Earth does not correspond to any season as it is the center, the neutral term of reference around which the seasons and other elements spin. The classic of categories 1624 by Zhang Jibin says the spleen belongs to Earth which pertains to the center. Its influence manifests for 18 days at the end of each of the four seasons and it does not pertain to any season on its own. The discussion of prescription from the golden chest CAD 220 by Zhang Zhongxing says during the last period of each season the spleen is strong enough to resist pathogenic factors. So, in the cycle of seasons, the earth actually corresponds to the late stage of each season. In other words, toward the end of each season, the heavenly energies go back to the earth for nourishment. Although the earth element is often associated with late summer or Indian summer, it also corresponds to late winter, late spring, and late autumn. Essential to the very concept of the five elements are the various interactions among them. Different philosophers stress different relationships among the five elements. For example, the main exponent of the naturalist school, Zhou Yan, wrote about only the controlling relationship among the elements. 36 different arrangements of the five elements are mathematically possible. The most common ones are five. The first is the cosmological sequence. As was mentioned earlier, the earliest reference to the five elements enumerates them as follows. As for the five elements, the first is called water, the second fire, the third wood, the fourth metal, and the fifth earth. The order in which the elements are enumerated is not a chance one and is closely related to their numerology. If we assign numbers to each of the elements in the order in which they are listed, they would be number 1 water, 2 fire, 3 wood, 4 metal, and 5 earth. If we add 5 to each of these numbers, we will get 6 water, 7 fire, 8 wood, 9 metal, and 10 or 5 for earth. In this arrangement, water assumes an important place as it is the basis, the beginning of the sequence, bearing in mind the correspondence of the kidneys to water. This reflects the important principle of the kidneys being the foundation of all the other organs. This sequence also bears out the importance of earth being the center, the pivot of reference for all the other elements. Then comes the generating sequence. In this sequence, each element is generated by one and generates another. Thus, wood generates fire, fire generates earth, earth generates metal, metal generates water, and water generates wood. Accordingly, wood, for example, is generated by water and it generates fire. A sequential stage that is sometimes expressed as wood is the child of water and the mother of fire. Then comes the controlling sequence. In this sequence, each element controls another and is controlled by one. Thus, wood controls earth, earth controls water, water controls fire, fire controls metal, and metal controls wood. Accordingly, wood controls earth, for example, but is controlled by metal. The controlling sequence ensures that a balance is maintained among the five elements. There is is also an interrelationship between the generating and the controlling sequence. For example, wood controls earth, but earth generates metal, which controls wood. Furthermore, on the one hand, wood controls earth, but on the other hand, it generates fire, which in turn generates earth. Thus, a self-regulating balance is kept at all times. The mutual generating and controlling relationships among the elements is a fine model of many self-regulating balancing processes to be seen in nature and in the human body. In nature, the five-element interrelationship and the fine regulating balance are clear forerunners of the ideas about ecological balance. Needham cites several interesting examples that clearly illustrate the above principles. Then comes the overacting sequence. This follows the same sequence as the controlling one, but in it, each element over controls another so that it causes it to decrease. This happens when the balance is broken and under the circumstances, the quantitative relationship among the elements breaks down so that at a particular time, one element is excessive in the relation to another. To return to a comparison with natural phenomena, the destructive actions of human beings toward nature, especially in recent times, provide numerous examples of this sequence. The last one is the insulting sequence. This sequence is literally called insulting in Chinese. It takes place in the reverse order to the controlling sequence. Thus, wood insults metal, metal insults fire, fire insults water, water insults earth, and earth insults wood. This also takes place when the balance is broken. Thus, the first two sequences deal with the normal balance among the elements, while the second two, overacting and insulting, deal with the abnormal relationships among the elements that take place when the balance is broken. To know about Chinese organ system imbalances and their homeopathic remedies, please read my book Beyond the Organs, available on Amazon Kindle in ebook form. To know the mental, physical, and spiritual aspect of acupuncture points, please read my book Beyond the Meridians. It is available on Amazon in both ebook and paper book form.